of people. There was, I couldn't even sit down on the little chart and talk about
Good morning, Seminole County.
Andrea, are you doing the pictures after the consent or before?
I was like, oh, I need to tell you.
Okay.
Good morning, Seminole County.
You need your gavel.
I don't need the gavel. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to call this meeting to order. If you would, please silence your cell phones. That means me too. And I am going to invite Pastor Bob Melhorn from Integrity Church up to do the invocation and then lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good morning, everybody. Let's be in prayer. Holy One, you have blessed us with yet another day. We are indeed privileged and grateful. And we thank you for your presence among us today, and I want to ask your blessing upon our county commissioners, our county manager, all who work for the great county, Seminole County, and we thank you for the privilege of living in such a beautiful part of the creation. As we move through the agenda today, we are going to be mindful that there are so many challenges, and often it feels that our resources seem inadequate, but we remember, Holy One, that you have blessed us richly, you are the provider, you have never failed us, and you will grant us what we need for the times we live in. All this we lift up to you in the great name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
I
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor, thank you very much. Thank you for being here. We're going to start this morning with two proclamations. I am pulling item number 3 from the consent agenda and moving it up so that we can read it out loud. We have wonderful folks from that organization here in the audience. Commissioner Zimbauer is going to start by proclaiming Specialist Elton Hogan of the United States Army as our Veteran of the Month for the month of July.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is my honor to read this proclamation on the cusp of our 250th anniversary here in this country, and for these individuals and their families who many have paid the ultimate sacrifice for us to be able to assemble and have the freedom of speech that we each and every one enjoy every day. The proclamation of the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners recognized United States Army Specialist Elton R. Hogan for his outstanding service to the United States and Seminole County. Whereas the brave men and women of our Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, and Space Force demonstrate a resolute spirit and unmatched selflessness, reminding us there are few things more American than giving of ourselves to make a difference in the lives of others. And whereas throughout our country's history, generations of service members have answered the call to leave their families, their jobs, and put their futures and even their lives on the line to valiantly defend our nation. And whereas, for many service members, the sacrifices ended in permanent injury or death, yet their spirit remains in the continued preservation of our freedoms and the promise of liberty. Whereas there are more than 30,000 living veterans in Seminole County who served our nation in times of peace and war. Through their service, they kept America strong. And whereas Specialist Hogan carries forward a proud family tradition of military service spanning generations. Following in the footsteps of his father, a veteran of World War II, and the Korean War, and alongside his son, a United States Marine, Specialist Hogan entered the U.S. Army in 1966. He served honorably as a military police officer at Fort Benning and Fort Gordon before his honorable discharge in 1968. His service reflects a lifelong commitment to duty, patriotism, and the enduring legacy of the Hogan family. And whereas Specialist Hogan's commitment to service continued long after his military career, following his time in the military, he earned his degree from Georgia Tech and went on to build a successful career in Central Florida's commercial construction industry as an estimator. In 1975, he and his wife Monica made Seminole County their home, where they raised their daughter and son and later enjoyed watching their two granddaughters grow up next door. For more than 50 years, Specialist Hogan has been a dedicated and respected member of the community, contributing his expertise, integrity, and steadfast presence to those around him. And whereas, upon fully retiring from the civilian sector in 1995, Specialist Hogan continued his commitment to serving others through the American Legion Post 243. A passionate advocate for the American Legion's Americanism program, he educates Seminole County youth on patriotism, citizenship, and respect for the American flag. His humility, leadership, and unwavering dedication to veterans and the community continue to make a lasting impact through Seminole County. Whereas Specialist Hogan has brought great credit and distinction upon himself, the United States of America, the United States Army, and Seminole County. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that we, the Board of County Commissioners of Seminole County, Florida, express our gratitude, admiration, and respect for Specialist Hogan for his outstanding service to the United States Army. Be it further proclaimed, this proclamation is presented to Specialist Elton R. Hogan, along with our sincere congratulations and recognition as Seminole County's Veterans of the Month, adopted this 14th day of July 2026.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. I can't tell you how honored I am to receive this award. It makes me think, we were just talking about our 250th anniversary of our country. Back when our country was founded, the founders thought that there should be a standing, what they called a standing army, a group of professional military people. But they figured also that the defense of our country lay in what they called the citizen soldier. People who gave up part of their lives to serve their country and then returned to their community to also live the rest of their life and to serve their community. These citizen soldiers are the people that your Seminole County Veterans Service officers serve. And I want to thank you on the behalf of all of us citizen soldiers for the support that this body gives to the veterans of our county. Again, I'm honored, and thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Specialist Hogan, those were remarkable words. I thank you. I thank all of you for your service. We're going to read one more, and then we'll bring you up for pictures. And these guys are really well-versed at jumping up for pictures, so no worry. You'll have a lot of directors. Commissioners, if you'll give me privilege, I'd like to read the following resolution of the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners recognizing the celebration of the 15th year anniversary of CORE, the Center of Recovery and Exercise, and the CORE Foundation in Seminole County. Whereas CORE was established in 2011 to provide activity-based training program to optimize the function, health, and independence for those with paralysis from spinal cord injuries and other neurological injuries and disorders. And whereas the CORE Foundation was established in 2011 to support individuals who otherwise could not afford an activity-based training program that has proven to improve their physical, mental, and clinical outcomes. And whereas the majority of CORE and CORE Foundation clients reside in Central Florida, and whereas many clients travel to CORE because the activity-based training program is not available where they reside in other parts of Florida, other states, and even other countries. And whereas CORE provides unique access to aquatic activity-based training in a state-of-the-art SwimX pool, And whereas CORE provides a bridge in the gap between traditional rehabilitation and the lifelong demands of paralysis, helping individuals move beyond their limitations, live an active lifestyle, and prevent secondary medical complications. And whereas CORE established in 2016 the Rocksteady Boxing Orlando program, which enables people with Parkinson's disease to fight their disease and gives hope for improving their quality of life through a non-contact boxing-based fitness curriculum. And whereas CORE and the CORE Foundation are committed to providing these life-enhancing services in Central Florida and specifically here in Seminole County. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Board of County Commissioners of Seminole County, Florida, do hereby congratulate CORE and the CORE Foundation on this milestone achievement of 15 years of service to Central Florida and Seminole County. Adopted this 14th day of July, 2026.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. We do have the founding family of CORE, which is Matthew Davies and Melody Patton Davies in the back, and the team. They'll come up for pictures later. I've asked them if they'd like to say a few words, and they are not going to say a few words this morning, but they do have a fundraising event that funds their foundation that they'll be hosting, and we'll be reading this at that same event, and I suspect there will be a few words spoken there. So now we'll do pictures, commissioners, down on the floor, and we'll start with our Veteran of the Month.
Great.
Could I say, have my family and all of my buddies come on up here? Family-wise, I'd like to buy. Okay, how about family first? Family members up first. The nurse and her will not go away. Come on, young lady.
She's like, I gotta help, I gotta help. It's Mary. No, it's her instigators. Don't rush a nurse.
Don't stay here. Come on, guys. Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
Try not to do that.
We have the, okay, Bob's got it.
All right, Commissioners, that brings us to the consent agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or modifications other than number 3?
No, ma'am, that's all, no changes to the consent agenda except for item 3.
Commissioners?
Nothing to pull. I'm ready to make a motion, Madam Chair. Move to, public input, sorry.
Public input. Is there any public input? No, ma'am. Now you're ready to make a
Yes.
motion.
I move to approve item number 2 and items 4 through 19.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. That brings us to regular agenda item number 20, benefits and wellness update from
Madam Chairman, if we could, I'd like to get that table put back in place.
Oh, I forgot to do that. So I was supposed to take a 5-minute break to get the table back, so we're on an official 5-minute break.
Perfect.
I cannot
Thank you.
be trusted if I don't
No,
write it down.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Darren.
No, I was like, where's it at? These are my people, they were Hey, Dominique, you're not putting those up yet, are you? Not yet. Oh, you have for them too? Oh. Wow, that's awesome. You're right. Wonder why you stay till 7 o'clock.
Just let them take
I know, I just need to be quiet. Be quiet. Everybody's watching.
Backup going on up there.
Test, test.
You already signed it. He's got it.
Sorry. I thought you meant it as opposed to, no, I meant just as.
Made its way to the clerk. Yay.
This one? I feel like I'm so low.
Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2.
Tim did say that's where I was moving mine. Yes, he was telling Charles. Up close, right?
I think I've said it 100 times. Clicker.
Oh, Dominique.
All right, I'm going to call this meeting back to order. I am going to ask that you guys do a mic check before we start, since we asked them to do this so quickly.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Oh, look at that.
That's nice and loud.
Can you hear me?
We
Okay.
are,
Too close?
fabulous
Too
job
far?
by our
Okay.
team. All right, I
You
will
can hear
turn
me?
this over to Christina Brandolini.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Christina Brandolini, Human Resources Director. And we are here this morning with our 2027 benefit update. And I will be joined this morning by Charles Cook from Alliant and Tim Jex. This is a bring back. Some of it is a bring back from April when we were here before you. So this morning we are going to, Tim is going to start us off with the health insurance forecast. We will discuss some plan design changes, proposed employee contributions for plan year 2027, pharmacy benefits manager, the medical carrier and partner alternatives, and then we will turn it over for discussion and direction. So I will turn it over to Tim to start us off.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Tim Jex with the Office of Management and Budget. The county has a dedicated fund to manage all health insurance activities. The fiscal 27 column is based on the proposed budget. The first line under revenues shows county paid premiums. The second line shows BCC employee paid premiums, and the third line shows premiums paid by our constitutional officers. The FY27 budget is based on an average increase of 12% for all premium lines. Moving down to expenditures, you can see the first row under claims. We had a large increase in fiscal 24 from $23 to $28 million. Since then, the increases has been more normalized. The total reserves for fiscal 27 are projected to be $11 million based on this forecast. The expenditure lines do not include any savings from plan design changes that will be discussed in the upcoming slides. That concludes my presentation.
Dominique, which button? Okay, we made some plan changes last year, and this is a summary of what we made for 2026. Line 1 is around coinsurance, which after the deductible is the part that the employees pay 20%, the plan paid 90 or 80, and we normalized that to 80%, which is norm. We adjusted the copays so that they would be logical in that the buy-up plan has the lowest copay, the mid plan has a higher copay, and then the low plan has the highest. We adjusted the emergency room copay to $300, and we increased the out-of-pocket and the primary care from 15 to 20 on the buy-up plan. So this normalized a lot of the plans, and we made the adjustment highlighted in yellow simply to be at the IRS required minimum deductible for an HSA eligible plan. Then what happened, we had those plan changes and we had contribution changes. Now, we didn't want to have a contribution change that had people move from the plan with the most costs without sharing contributions. So the contribution adjustments guided people to the lower cost plans, and you see that we had significant reduction in enrollment in the buy-up plan and the mid plan, and then into the low and high deductible health plan. So that was a good thing. That was what we had hoped to achieve. As we continue to look at the challenges in the market, you are not alone in your costs having gone up. We have seen over the last 2.5 years a significant spike in claims across the board. I wish there were a perfect study to show that. I will say 1.5 years ago when I met with you each individually, we were looking at the largest number of high-dollar cancer claims that we've seen ever in your plan. And the number of those has gone down. We still have some high claimants, so we still have a budgetary challenge. If you go to the next slide, the plan changes that we're proposing to make are to continue to normalize to general market norms in terms of the deductibles. And the deductibles, you can see on the last line, but not in yellow, we are raising the deductible on the buy-up plan from $250 to $500. This will leave me in my entire book of business with nobody with $250 deductible. That's kind of a thing of the past. And then $500 to $1,000 on the mid plan, $1,000 to $1,500 on the low plan. small change in deductible per IRS in the HSA plan, and then those amounts will apply to the out-of-pocket and to the family. So these are relatively incremental. When I show you the plan design, the impact of the cost, we ran it several different ways to be as conservative as possible in what the projected savings would be, but you are in some instances doubling the deductible and adding a lot to the out-of-pocket. After that, this is the contributions, and you have these in front of you. We have talked about them in the briefing. There is an overall general increase of around 12%, overall general increase. This is BCC only. This does not include the constitutionals. This is just the structure for BCC. You will see that the increases are higher on the employee spouse and on the employee family tiers. This is part of a general philosophy that we're seeing. We need to take care of our employees. We're not going to boot off the spouses and family members, but they are a big share of the cost, as we'll show you on the next slide. This is one report looking at one period, and you can see the base means the last 12 months, 2025. The base means 2024, current 2025. And you can see to the right the norm, that we are above the norm in all categories, okay? And this norm is against similar employers. I think one of the outliers is it's in governmental groups that will have retirees. You have a lot of retirees, you have a lot of older population, pre-65, and so forth. So you're above the norm. So that middle one about the employee spouse is kind of what drove the higher increase in contribution on that tier. Making all those changes, and this is just a high-level summary of the changes that I showed you before, will result in fiscal year 2020, or not fiscal year, calendar year, that's your plan year, 2027, 1.372 in projected claim savings. So Tim's numbers that started here, we have now reduced it by 1.372 is our estimate. And again, that I believe is a conservative estimate using two different models. And then pharmacy. Now, Cigna's here, so I can't say the word whack-a-mole as I did before, so I won't. Pharmacy is evolving significantly and rapidly with a march towards full transparency, which would mean that you have a known admin fee for either script or member, and then you pay what it costs, and you get the full rebate if there is a rebate. And we never want to chase rebates by buying higher cost drugs, but we want to maximize what we get. So in the arrangement, you're in the second year of a 3-year arrangement with Cigna. And last year we did a PBM RFP and looked at a number of options. One of them was not Prime. Prime is the only non-Big 3 PBM that Cigna will integrate with. Integration means that all of the things that happen in pharmacy accumulate towards your deductible and out-of-pocket, and medical management integration, and that type of thing. So Prime is unique. Prime also does something called patient assistance. You all may or may not be familiar with coupons for high-cost drugs. That's already in place. But there's an extra step where members that might be eligible for assistance on very high-cost drugs, that could be governmental assistance, foundation assistance, manufacturer assistance. And so there's an option for international sourcing. So building all of that in and asking Cigna for a revision on their program, Cigna proposed what's called their acquisition cost plus model. It has a target drug spend with $250,000 at risk on Cigna's part for failure to meet that target. And that would reduce, relative to what we were looking at in 2027, a reduction of $852,000. Prime, from a pricing standpoint, without the patient assistance or international sourcing, was $860,000. So very, very close. If we said that all the people, of which there are 77 in total for patient assistance and manufacturer assistance international sourcing, were to get the maximum amount of money that they might be eligible for, that would be $1.5 million compared to the 852. Now, through Prime and their historical evaluation of what they get, in concert with our pharmacy team at Alliant, we projected that range of that max savings would be between $872 and $1,077,000. So this is the result. And while it's unusual to reevaluate some of these items every year, pharmacy is something that literally is changing so fast, the rebates are changing so fast, that this was, I think, a very good exercise that will result, at a minimum, of $852,000 reduction. The next slide, another thing that's happened in the market, and I will use this, this is not humor. It's interesting today that one of the honorees is Matt Davies, who came down for a picture. I'm a little emotional, actually. Matt was literally a visionary leader in United's growth in this market 30 years ago. So I'm very proud to have learned under him and worked with him, and he's gone. But anyway, in our market, it's always changing, which makes it not boring. So in this market, United and Cigna, I would say, have owned the public sector, absent Orlando Utilities Commission, for a long time. Aetna has a partnership with Orlando Health, and they have something called an accountable care organization, which involves risk share and savings, and it's a smaller network than Aetna's big network. This is not new. It's been around for a while, but Aetna has won the business of the City of Orlando for 2027. That led us to see, what does that look like now for us? Not in an RFP, but what does this look like? And Commissioner Lockhart asked about disruption, okay, what it would mean to employees. If you went from Cigna to Aetna, big network, 99.7% overlap. That's the same. If you were to, and with that, you would say, we'll offer the big network, and what if we offered the ACO? In the ACO, the overlap of doctors is less than 50%. Aetna has been very direct with us because of the way the reporting is done, not to overstate this number, but that's what it would be. So I looked and said, okay, what's the impact here? And the bottom part shows the last 2 years of spend at Advent versus Orlando Health, just to give you an idea about where your people go. Now, understand, there's more to be researched about the actual cost of care at Orlando Health versus Advent. One or the other may inflate the number, but this is where you are now. On the next slide, I wanted to share that also something not new to the market is Cigna's not accountable care organization. It's called an integrated care. It's a different model, but it is a subset of the doctors in the Cigna network, and it is a partnership with Advent. So you have two things going on here. And I wanted in big picture terms, for those employees that went to the Advent or Orlando Health ACO, there's roughly a 14% cost savings in that part. That's about the same in Cigna around Advent. And then both are potentially would offer an additional facilities discount for those people in the larger network. So you're not forcing everybody to either of the small networks. There's an advantage to offering the ACO or SureFit in either scenario, and you would have additional savings there. That is something that we will continue to monitor and model. This, I think, was a good exercise to understand the state of the market now, not specifically going through an RFP now, but to give you this information, and I think there's more to be learned. There's a new Orlando Health Hospital in the your footprint, if you will. So I think there's more to learn, but we wanted to share this with you. So it comes down to the two different overall projections. The plan design changes 1.372, and then we have the estimated pharmacy savings using the $852,000 from Cigna on their revised acquisition cost plus, and 1.1 with Prime, assuming a 50% success rate, if you will, on the patient assistance and international sourcing. That brings us to the staff recommendations. And Christina, would you like me to, or you?
I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
This way. So at this time, we are recommending that the board approve the plan design changes for plan year 2027, which includes the deductible and out-of-pocket. We are also recommending the approval of the proposed monthly employee contributions for 2027. Approving moving the pharmacy to the Cigna acquisition cost plus as the pharmacy benefit manager for plan year 2027. And then approving for staff and Alliant to initiate an RFP for plan year 2028, while we continue to monitor those emerging trends such as the narrow networks. And we're happy to answer any questions.
County Manager, anything to add?
No, ma'am.
Commissioners, I'm going to defer to you all to tell me where you want me speaking on this, beginning or end. Commissioner Lockhart.
During my briefing, we talked a lot about all of these topics very much in depth, and one of the questions that I had was, can we get to some of these savings and see potential innovation or changes without going to RFP? Is going to RFP the only solution for some of the changes that you're talking about potentially?
I don't think it's the only solution. For long-term self-funded clients, we can give you a market norm on admin fees, which is going to be pretty similar, if you will. We could do in-depth analysis on claims and repricing to the extent that the reports we get will allow us to, and model what it would look like under different scenarios. We haven't talked about United or Florida Blue, which are the other big players, and what they are doing. United has a version of a narrow network partnered with Advent. Florida Blue has always had their HMO, which is still unique in this market, as a smaller network, albeit a big network. So I could give you a lot of information and evaluation without an RFP to make that decision.
I think, just to be sure, I agree with every one of the bullets and support all of the staff recommendations. This is the only one where I hesitate a little bit because I know what going out to RFP means. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time for our team. It's a lot of time and money for all of the responders. And without a real specific reason why we want to jump ship, I'm just not sure if we can gain some of the efficiencies and some of the things that we're looking for and tap into some of the newer options that may be available without doing that. That would be my preference. But I'm one of five, so.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
In the last briefing, or the last hearing we had regarding this, that we gave direction, I'm still in the same place. As an employer myself, there is some benefit to not disrupting the entire program for our workforce. Anytime you change providers, that's always a rough road and somewhat of a thing for people to get accustomed to and so forth. So I'm okay with all the staff recommendations, albeit I would like us to focus and study this as we move towards that deadline, and then maybe have a discussion with Cigna at that point, what it looks like in the marketplace and whether it makes sense for us to change providers or not. So I think that's sort of along the same line as Commissioner Lockhart's asking, just in a little different fashion. But for those reasons, I would very much like us to monitor that, give us a report prior to going to an RFP, maybe some discussions with the current provider, and see where we're at.
Commissioner DeLaury?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I agree with my other commissioners as well. Charles, as well as Christine, I think your recommendations are spot on. I would like to see some additional information from those other carriers you just spoke about. I think it's, since the market keeps on changing, and I know it's changes rather fast, so it'd be nice to know what those other providers are doing with the market changes so we can actually understand that. One thing we haven't talked about yet, but I know that it's going to happen in the future, is the overall wellness program. I think there needs to be some additional conversations on that, because a healthy group, you have less spend, obviously. And I know that is something that we've worked pretty hard with in the past, and it's really helped us. And I'd like to know what that wellness program, what our existing wellness program is, and what it could be, if there's any changes that should be done, and when that'd be addressed. But I'd like to see what those other carriers are looking at so that we can better understand, is it beneficial to go to market or not?
All right, I will wrap this up. I want to go to slide 12, because I think this is and it's page 12 in your handout. This slide, and Charles and I have had this discussion, and by the way, I should start by saying no one appreciates the immense amount of work that you've gone through to get it to this point, and reducing it to this many slides better than I do.
Thank you.
So very, very well done. But this slide is a little bit confusing if you're not in this business, and that is that this makes it look like the discount advantage is the same, but it's based on a discount off of the underlying deal. If the underlying deal for Orlando Health is better than the underlying deal than Advent, or vice versa, then the starting point isn't the same. And so one of the challenges that we're all having in this marketplace is that when you move to an ACO, the disruption, and by the way, it is a choice, so you would disrupt yourself if you want to go into the narrow network. It's a choice by all employees. Everyone would still have access to the broader network, and the Aetna network and the United network and the Cigna network are all within a percentage of a percentage point away from each other. Doesn't matter if it's your doctor, but we move these plans back and forth fairly regularly. But what you don't want to do is start within an ACO, and I'll just call it out, with an existing carrier, and then have to migrate the ACO to a lower cost ACO later, because that's 100% disruption in this marketplace today. So for those of you that are old enough, and Charles and I are, think back to Prudential and Cigna a million years ago, and you either went to their doctors or their doctors, and they didn't overlap. And then United came in, and we bled them all together and blew all of that up. It's going back to the way it was. So the reason why I think we really do need to see what the market bears is because we don't want to do this twice. We really can only do it once. I would tell you that from my perspective, and I know I'll just prepare Stephen for the statement that I'm about to make, but he's heard it before. I think there is a way to thread the needle with going to market without going through a full formal RFP. By statute, you can shop benefits, you can shop health care without going through an RFP process. Whether or not that's in our code or not, but that does streamline the entire process, and quite frankly, it gives the consultant the ability to get real, better information because the conversations can happen ongoing. Still a deadline, still a hard finish, still all the stuff, and you can manage that however you want to manage that. I think that's how we accomplish this goal. I think it starts with the medical side from a timeline perspective. It starts with the medical side and focusing on which deal is better. And then it moves to the pharmacy side because Aetna does allow more PBMs to connect than Cigna does. Cigna may migrate that over time. And I'm going to give a shout out to the Cigna team, who's been a wonderful partner here. We have Beth and Janice here in the audience. Thank you for being here. They step up every time we ask them to step up. The market is just where the market is. So I think the recommendations are good. I think that we need to explore whether or not we can do this without the formal RFP process, because I think we will have a better outcome and we will be better informed. The reason that I am pretty firm on this action is because there is now data available in the marketplace because of the Transparency Acts that were passed by the federal government in recent years. So now all of the carriers have to provide the employers who are offering plans on a self-funded basis access to a link to the machine-readable files, the MRFs, so that every hospital deal on every network deal on every program that they have is public information. We are now, and Charles is now able to ingest that data through data analytics platforms and measure them against each other. So I do have reason to believe that there's a discount differential in this marketplace that is costing us taxpayer money. Could it change within the next year? Yes, but we have to look at it from my perspective. So, I mean, I think the motion, the way they put it, is really good. I do want to get a couple of other things on the record. That as we migrate people to the lower plans, we lose revenue into the plan, and we cannot lose track of that. And I know Charles hasn't, but we need to not lose track of that. When we file the 11208, which is the required filing with the Office of Insurance Regulation, we should be filing it so that we're not showing a deficit if there is no deficit. This document shows a deficit, but then we subtract from the deficit, and I've asked that we make sure that whatever we have to do to adjust that to make sure that it's the real number that gets filed so that we're filing even. I would also tell you that running down a reserve is a whole heck of a lot easier than building up a reserve. We've all been in that role before, and we do not want to run this reserve down to the point where it becomes difficult. It takes us too long to make decisions. I have had a very wise board in the past of one of my clients implement a 180-day reserve policy. And that was a wise thing, and it was a little bit conservative, but not wildly conservative. The state monitors for a 60-day reserve. That is for fiscal solvency. That is not for a healthy plan. And so we can't be anywhere near there. I just wanted to get that on the record. 114 days, something.
The current fiscal 26 budget is just under 140 days.
Yeah. And next year's budget, we are thinking stays flat, but more than likely goes down because we're anticipating the savings and benefit changes, which is always a challenge, always a challenge. I do believe that we need to consider whether or not if spouses are eligible for coverage through another employer, that they take that and not ours. So that should be for next year's consideration as we're doing this. I do also think we should be doing Medicare education anywhere we can do it, because we have folks that are staying on our plan beyond their Medicare years and really costing themselves money, quite honestly. And education needs to happen for 100% of our employee population, because we never know when anybody can go into Medicare, and it does help people plan for the future. I would also like to throw out there that there is, out in the public venue, the potential for the removal of rebates. Cigna is proposing removal of rebates over the long term. I realize that it's not happening draconianly. I realize that it's phasing in. But there are articles out there already where they are talking about the removal of rebates, and the rebated amount would go to point of service to the discount at the drugstore when you pick up the drug. We have a significant amount of funding sitting in rebates, so we would need to figure out how to feather that in, or employee contributions have to change. There's only two choices. So just be aware that that's another market dynamic that's changing, that's arching over this, and there are dates out there for that 27, 28 roll-in. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's other places that do that because of the tremendous amount of pressure that the Trump administration is putting on the market, which is great pressure. I support the pressure. So with that, I will look to a motion
Madam Chair.
or discussion.
Yeah, I don't
There was an,
think yeah, well, we hadn't weighed in yet, but I'm prepared to make a motion.
Commissioner
As was I.
Constant.
Go for
Okay.
it.
So, I just wanted to say, in talking with the staff over this, I, as all of you have already said, support the staff recommendations. I think they really took a very hard and in-depth look at it. But I also heard what you, Madam Chair, and other commissioners said. So I would move the recommendation with the fourth bullet saying instead of approve staff to initiate, approve staff to investigate initiating an RFP plan for 2028.
Investigate initiating.
Yes, that's fine.
So you're approving all of those top three with the caveat on the fourth one changing?
To
Yes.
investigating, and what happens after they investigate
Yeah,
it?
can we report back to us? Would that be a friendly amendment?
Yes, that was the intent. I'm sorry, but yes.
Then I'll second that, Madam Chair. And for clarification purposes, this investigation, you're going to be telling us other plan and other providers, correct? That's what I'm assuming.
So it's not agreed to go to a full-blown.
I didn't say that.
No, I'm sorry. I was just,
And I think that is the wise move, if that's going to be the flavor of the board. I mean, frankly, in today's marketplace, with what's going on in the hospital systems, what's going on in the political realms with Trump putting the pressure upon the system, there's a whole lot of things that can change between now and then. I mean, a lot of things dramatically could change. So I will absolutely support that coming back to us for further review.
Commissioner Lockhart, anything to add?
No.
So I would add to it that if I was sitting in your shoes, I'd be concerned about what does that really mean, so I'm going to try to clarify it.
May I weigh in?
Yes.
I think, I hear you all, and I think we can do an evaluation and understand the lay of the land in the market. In an RFP, we take it as seriously as you do. And it is always a time when you learn things you didn't know, FYI. But I would like to get this information back to you and have a decision so that it can be ready to go in January. There's a procurement, there's a process. Now, if we can do, as Commissioner Hurst said, different than procurement, that tightens the window a little bit, and I think that's good. Potentially, I see pros and cons to that. I see more pros, but we'll have to see if that's possible. But we can't be behind the eight ball. 4 years ago, we started in January. The decision was made like June 3rd or something, which was later than I would have preferred. But that's just my logistical way in. Thank you.
Commissioner Zembauer.
Charles, thank you very much for that. I don't disagree. I think that we need to explore all possibilities, including piggybacking on an RFP that's already out there as part of our review process, that another government agency or entity is already utilizing. I think that's imperative that we look at that. That may be very helpful.
Do you have enough direction?
I interrupted you, so do you want to finish?
Yeah, so I think there's analysis and then there's reality. And bringing back analysis that all we've done is kick this can down the road and the decision as to whether or not we want to go to market, because whatever analysis you bring back isn't going to be any clearer than what we already know today. That's my perspective. And so I do think we need to be ready to pull the trigger on going, but I'm going to tell you that whatever he brings back is going to be theoretical if it's an analysis that doesn't include quotes, including stop loss,
Okay, stop loss is
discounts. all
glad-
its stuff.
yeah. The discounts and all of that are like the critical underlying component. Stop loss is carved out now.
Yep.
We've been good with Sun Life. That was something we used to be able to have done by August. Those days are over,
Yep.
and I won't go into it on the stop loss market, but that's there too. I think we will be ready, but we would need you to say go by early January.
And so when do you think you can bring the analysis back by? We're sitting in July.
Yeah. I would love November.
Remember it is.
Or first meeting in December. November's dicey with holiday.
Right. We have one meeting in November.
Can we end it?
It would need to be October.
I would
I'm gonna
prefer
tell you
then,
right now. It needs to be October or
I'm
November.
concerned about
Yeah,
December.
December's too
So
late.
If we could work out
I put
October.
on November.
November it is. Okay.
November or sooner as you're ready.
Yes.
All right, Commissioners, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you for all the work you've done. Thank you to the Cigna team for being good partners. We appreciate you. You know I'm going to read that pharmacy contract 17 times, so be prepared for the phone calls.
May I say one thing? I'm sorry, to your point, hopefully our employees saw in the newsletter, but this Thursday, we do have our Financial Expo, and Medicare and Social Security will be there all day. They will be doing 2 presentations, and they'll be there all day to answer questions, so.
Awesome, thank you,
Thank you,
Christina.
Christina.
Christina, I
Thank you,
did not
Commissioners.
thank you for all of your hard work and all the things that you've done. Very well done. We
Thank you.
appreciate you and
Thank
your
you.
entire team.
Oh, did we vote? Oh,
we
did we
did.
do public comment? Sorry.
Would you like to make a comment?
No, I said did public comment? Sorry.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
totally
Was there
missed that.
public comment? Oh,
All right.
thank you.
All right.
I think Dominique is absolutely teed up to hunt me down and
That's
wrestle me to
right.
the ground if there's ever public comment, yeah. I do love that topic a little more than the average bear, though. All right, well, this is exciting stuff, I can tell. What we need is the veterans back cheering for the budget session. Yay, budget session number 4. We have Tim Jex here. Tim, I'll turn it over to you.
And before Mr. Jex gets started, Chairman, I'll go ahead and just have a few opening comments. So good morning, Chairman and Commissioners, those of the public who joined us today. Today's budget work session begins an important conversation about potential impacts of the proposed property tax amendment on Seminole County government. Whether this amendment is ultimately approved or rejected will be decided by Florida voters in November. This November, our responsibility is not to advocate for or against the decision. Our responsibility is to understand what the proposal would mean for county government, prepare for the possibility that, if it passes, ensure that this board has the information necessary to make informed public policy decisions. Today's presentation is intended to provide that foundation. We'll review what is actually on the ballot. We'll clear up some common misconceptions, explain how county government is funded through property taxes, and discuss the potential impacts to Seminole County if the amendment is approved. One message I want to emphasize from the outset of any potential impacts would be it will not be isolated to one department or one area of government. This proposal would affect one of the county's primary revenue sources, meaning every property tax supported function of county government would need to be evaluated. As you'll see throughout today's presentation, reductions of this magnitude cannot be absorbed by a single department or a single service area. They would require shared sacrifices across county government, including public safety. Today's work session is intended to frame that broader conversation. Beginning in August, the board will hear directly from departments and constitutional offices about specific services they provide, the potential impacts to those services, and the options available to respond if voters approve the amendment. So with that, Chairman, I'd like to turn it back over to our Budget Director, Tim Jex, and he'll walk us through this presentation. We also have our property appraiser, Mr. David Johnson, here. Told him he didn't have to make a presentation. We just heard from him a couple months ago, but he is available to answer any questions that the board has as well.
Thank you, Mr. County Manager. In November, the voters will consider Constitutional Amendment Number 3, titled Save Our Homes from Excessive Property Taxes. There are two primary changes to this amendment. First, a bigger exemption for homesteaded properties.
Tim, pull that mic, will you? Sorry.
That will take us from the current $50,000 exemption up to $150,000 next year and $250,000 in 2028 and beyond. Also on the ballot is a reduction in the annual growth cap for non-homesteaded properties from 10% down to 5%. There were initial discussions when this amendment was proposed indicating that there would be a state trust fund to offset reductions in property taxes. This did not make it onto the final amendment. Public safety budgets are not protected from the proposed amendment and can be reduced if voters approve a tax cut in revenues. Final, there's limited savings from the change in non-homesteaded properties. When we look at the total impact of the amendment to taxpayers, 97% is related to the homesteaded properties and 3% is to commercial and other non-homesteaded properties. If we focus on the $250,000 exemption, this does not apply to non-homesteaded properties. That's renters, businesses, and people with second homes. It also does not apply to school board millage, non-ad valorem assessments like MSBUs, trash pickup, water sewer bills, fire assessments, or stormwater assessments. The last two are not currently levied by the Board of County Commissioners. Finally, you'll still pay taxes on assessed values over $250,000, so property owners will still have a bill for schools, fees, and other services. The homestead exemption does apply to the countywide general fund, our Fire Rescue EMS Fund, our Roads Fund, the St. Johns River Water Management District, and all city millages. This chart shows the makeup of the total 181,000 parcels in Seminole County. 40% are non-homesteaded and would receive no savings from the additional exemption. 32% are homesteaded with a current assessed value under $250,000, meaning they would receive a partial benefit from the increased exemption. And finally, 28% are homesteaded with an assessed value over $250,000. These properties will receive the full benefit of the increased exemption. Taxpayers should understand where they fall in this chart when using online calculators to figure out how much they will save. Now we'll move on to the impact to Seminole County revenues. The county is projected to collect $426 million in property tax revenues in fiscal '27. 72% is spent on public safety, and this reform will cut ad valorem revenues by 27%, which is a reduction of $119 million. So we have $426 million collected, $119 million reduced. Of this reduction, $116 million comes from the increased homestead exemption, and $3 million comes from the reduced cap for non-homesteaded properties. This chart shows the revenues to the general fund, fire fund, and roads fund. The first line shows ad valorem property tax revenues totaling to $426 million. Next line shows the reduction at the $250,000 exemption level. The property appraiser estimates an $85 million reduction in the general fund, $33 million reduction in the fire fund, and $1 million reduction in the roads fund. This is approximately totaling 27% of our revenues. The final row in bold shows the net impact of the total revenues in each fund. This reform will have the greatest impact on fire services because that fund relies on the highest percentage of property tax revenues. We have balanced budgets in all three funds, so this final row presented percentages will provide the framework for necessary service reductions. This chart combines the three ad valorem funds to show where your property tax dollars are allocated. 72% goes towards public safety activities, including law enforcement, corrections, fire, EMS, and dispatch. 11% goes to fund transportation, 5% to county parks, libraries, natural lands, and trails. 3% is for BCC general government activities. 3% funds our constitutional officers. 1% goes to community services, and 5% is allocated to unfunded state mandates. These are the same budgets in pie chart format. The center pie shows the impact of the 20% reduction to net fund revenues. This impact is greater than the total amount paid from the ad valorem funds for community services, the constitutional officers, county administration, natural lands and trails, libraries, parks, Sunrail, microtransit links, and 1/3 of the public works road and bridge budget. It is not realistic to assume that these budgets can be reduced to zero.
Go back real quick, Tim. And I don't want to interrupt you too much, but I think this is probably one of the best slides of the whole presentation. And this really shows that if you don't do anything to public safety and leave them whole, that whole red area, the cone red area, that's the 20% revenue impact. Look, it eliminates those areas in red. So it eliminates links, the Scout, microtransit, the Sunrail, parks, libraries, natural lands, trails, county administration functions, constitutional offices, again, that we're required to fund by the state, and community services, all the not-for-profit groups that we partner with. So we just wanted to show you what that impact actually does if you don't do anything to public safety. So a reason why I said in the beginning that it's going to have to, we're going to have to look at all services that the county funds if this amendment gets approved. Thank you.
This chart shows the budget impact if the reductions were spread evenly across all programs. So public safety would be a $74 million reduction, transportation $9 million reduction, recreation $6 million reduction, human services $1 million, and general government $7 million. The public safety percentage is higher due to the greater projected revenue cut in our fire fund. First, we have our sheriff's budget. This is the largest line item in our ad valorem funds. Corrections is an unfunded countywide state mandate. The total budget is $202 million. A 20% reduction would be approximately $40 million. Next is the county's fire department. This service has a dedicated fund. All activities in the fire fund are for fire, rescue, public safety services. The majority of this budget pays for personnel. A 23% reduction in revenues would equate to approximately $31 million. The fire department provides fire response services, ambulance EMS, emergency 911 dispatch, community paramedicine, and community outreach. Our final public safety budget is for emergency management and animal control. Total budget is $9.9 million. A 20% reduction equates to $2 million. Emergency management services include maintaining the public safety radio telecommunications system and towers, hazard planning for emergencies, coordinating response during emergencies, including managing our EOC, recovery coordination, mitigation efforts to minimize damage in future emergencies, animal control dispatch and field service, and running the countywide animal shelter. Moving to transportation, the county spends $46 million from our ad valorem funds on Lynx buses, Sunrail, Scout microtransit service, and the Public Works Road and Bridge Department. A 20% reduction would be $9.3 million. Public Works maintains 2,700 roadways, 419 traffic signals, 32,000 traffic signs. They maintain the county stormwater system, which prevents localized flooding. They maintain our bridges and manage construction of our transportation infrastructure. Next, we have budgets for parks and recreation services totaling $29.6 million. A 20% reduction equates to $5.9 million. Parks Department manages 7,700 acres of natural lands and passive parks. They run the county's 6 regional active parks and sports facilities. They manage 5 library branches, the Ed Yarborough Nature Center, the County Museum, Extension Services, and a combined 136 miles of trails. Community services budgets make up just over 1% of our property taxes at $6.6 million. 20% reduction equates to $1.3 million. Services include low-income assistance, child care and after-school programming, providing meals for at-risk seniors, support of the county's homeless shelter, attainable housing initiatives, support for nonprofit agencies like Rescue Outreach Mission, Kids House, Safe House, and the Boys and Girls Club. Next are general government budgets paid from the county's property taxes totaling $35 million. A 20% reduction equates to $7 million. General government services include long-range planning, growth management, land development, our fleet and facilities department, administrative and fiscal oversight, county administration, including budgets for the board, county manager, county attorney, human resources, information technology, and the Office of Management and Budget, as well as constitutional officers, the supervisor of elections, clerk, and property appraiser. My final slide shows unfunded mandate budgets paid from property taxes. This list does not include the jail or emergency management, which were presented under public safety. The tax collector's budget is based on a percentage of ad valorem revenues collected, so this reform would result in a reduction in his funding. Based on Florida statutes, county boards have more limited authority to reduce the budgets for the courts, health department, Medicaid, veteran services, water quality, and FRS.
Thanks, Tim. And for our next steps, Chairman and Commissioners, what we were looking at next, based on our conversations today, I've already put together a meeting with our leadership team, all of our directors and division managers. That's probably close to 70 of us. We're going to be going off-site, looking at the impacts to Amendment 3 here with the property tax amendment, looking at possible reductions, other efficiencies. You know, we're continuing to look at that through our Seminole Moments program anyway, so we will incorporate that into that discussion as well. Our communications team is launching a public information resources. One of the things that we are allowed to do is provide facts to the public, so we want to make sure that our residents and business owners can get on our website and look at the facts regarding this amendment and impacts. Of course, we'll have a frequently asked questions, brochures, videos, presentation materials. The Florida Association of Counties is also, as you all have submitted that to our offices as well, so we'll make sure that's available for the public. What I'd like to do with the board's direction is to come back in late August and 1st of September and bring those impacted property tax departments and services back to the board, and that's including our fire department, the sheriff's office, emergency management, Parks and Recreation, Public Works, Community Services, and our Elections Office. So within 2 meetings, I would like to have all those go back. What we showed you today was across-the-board impacts. If we just did, for instance, a 20% reduction across the board. However, we know that one size does not fit all, and that we will be working on the board's priorities if this does move forward. So what I would like to do is have those constitutional officers like the sheriff, supervisor of elections, as well as our departments, tell you what type of impact that would do to their operation. And then, of course, not with the property tax discussion, but we have our annual budget adoption in September the 15th and the 22nd for the budget year starting October 1. And then we'll roll back up into the election day on November 3rd to see if the property tax amendment is approved or not. And based on that, we'll come back to the board for future direction.
I just want to clarify something
Yes.
before we move on. Commissioner Zimbauer, I'll be there in a minute. You mentioned other constitutionals, but they're not on the document unless I'm missing it.
No, I will include all the property tax, yes, all the constitutionals.
All the
Yes.
constitutionals.
So we missed the
Sheriff's
clerk.
Office is mentioned, but the others aren't.
Yeah, elections
So-
office is there, but we missed the clerk. We'll make sure all of them are included that receive property tax dollars.
Okay. Commissioner Zimbauer.
Thank you very much. Just some direction I would like to be considered, and also a statement. The State Revenue Estimating Conference has read through this at the direction of the legislatures. Of course, they moved forward with the proposal before their estimate came out. Their estimate indicates that the impact to counties will be at least a quarter of the revenue. They also estimate, because of the other things that will stay in place with the caps on the increases, that what's going to occur is the market's going to outpace the increased taxation capabilities, values. And so therefore, it will cut deeper into law enforcement and fire protection. And if it continues, there's no way to get ahead of that. So I would like, when you all come back, at least for me, to look at that inflationary impacts over the next 5 such years, so we understand what that looks like, and so our constitutionals are fully aware that, at least on the surface, this report looks like it's definitely going to impact fire and law enforcement. But it's not lost on me, and I'm sure it's not lost on my fellow commissioners, as we see our comrades in Tallahassee brag about how much money they have and how they've paid down the debt and so forth. And I sort of sit there and chuckle often when I see these reports and go, yeah, because you shifted the burden to the locals. And that's exactly what has happened with a lot of these mandates. And a lot of those costs now that were borne at the state level have actually trickled down to the local level. So I think it's important that our citizens clearly understand that, and I think it's wise for us to identify those, and I know staff has already identified those to a certain extent, but to actually put the bright lights on it, and let's have a reality check and a real discussion of what's happened there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other comments? Commissioner DeLaury?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, thank you for the presentation, County Manager and staff. I think you're doing a very nice job. I like the pie chart that you have with property tax funding services and the, let's keep on going. There it is. I think that really shows quite a bit of an impact. But I'd like to understand, because you hear that there's a lot of different online calculators out there. There's a couple of them may have some issues. I'd like to know if it's possible to tell us which ones are calculating it correctly so that we can direct people to the right website or the right calculator. And with that, I'd like to actually have it, when you bring this back, statutorily, what services are we required to provide statutorily, including the unfunded mandates? And then with that, I know that Moody's and Standard & Poor's have talked about and issued some papers on the bond ratings and what would happen. I'd like to have to make sure that everyone is aware of that as well, instead of not just, email box.
That does need to be out on the public record,
And 'cause
yes.
I've had conversations
I think-
about that, and people are like, I've never seen that. And so I just want to make sure that that's public information.
I think Mr. Johnson might have an answer for you.
Commissioner DeLaury, let
Yes,
me
sir.
answer your question about online calculators
Okay.
right now. There is not one that is accurate.
And that's the
Okay?
reason why I'm asking the
So
question.
let's start with that. The calculator that a lot of folks gravitated to literally the day the legislature started meeting to put this proposal out there was a calculator designed, I think, in the governor's office at some level based on his plan, okay, which has very little semblance to what we ended up with. There is some, but not totally. So that calculator that's out there, when you punch in your address, and I did not check it this morning, but I guarantee you it's probably still up, and it shows that you owe zero taxes, okay, if you're under $250,000, is just wrong, okay? Because it assumed there was not going to be a school tax, and it assumed a lot of things, okay? It also assumed that public safety would be held harmless, and there would be trust funds, and ta-dot. None of that is true. I have been asked a number of times from my office's perspective, and I love a calculator as good as anybody, and a spreadsheet, and if there's going to be anybody who put one out there, we would do it. I will tell you why we have not done it, because too many assumptions would have to be made that would create a false premise. I can't tell you, we've got about 8 or 9% of all the homesteaded properties in this county flip every year as far as sell, and their values get reset. I have a lot of skills. Clairvoyancy is not one of them. So I can't tell you which properties will sell and which will not. I also would have to also make the assumption that there would be no backfilling, if you will, between creating maybe a non-ad valorem assessment or having to raise millages. And again, I'm not saying that will happen here, but there are 67 counties, 400 cities, 3,000 special districts in the state. No one size fits all. So from the public's perspective, there is no calculator that will give them an accurate number at this point, okay? And I'm not sure how we get to one, to be honest with you.
And
So,
David-
and I'm not being snarky when I'm answering the question. I'm just trying to tell you, there's not one out there
And David,
as of
I'm
today.
not taking it that you're being snarky.
Right.
You're being transparent. I
Right.
get that. And the reason why I'm asking the question, because I want to be transparent. And if
Right.
there isn't one available, I just want it to be noted that there's these issues you just pointed out.
Right.
Tell us what those issues are, document it, and we move on. And that's all I'm trying to, that's the point I'm trying to get to for full transparency. And I appreciate not only your passion, but your transparency.
And I think the trick is, education is the key here, and as the county manager indicated, we have to be very careful. Currently on our website, on the front page, is a frequently asked questions category to try to dispel some of these myths that are out there, and then obviously just a very clear graphic about what the amendment does. So we look forward to working with your communication staff about being
And that's
consistent
the
in
main
that
purpose of me
information.
asking the
Right,
question
sure.
the way I did, as well as what we are required statutorily to provide. Because people assume that there are certain things we have to provide, and that may be true, it may not be true. And I just wanted to know from your perspective, with the research, what are we required to provide?
Right. Got it.
Well, and I think there's the notion that you have to you may be statutorily required to provide it, but you're also statutorily required not to deficit spend. And so those two may be at juxtaposition, and I can tell you where I'm going to land is not deficit spending. So that's the reality. Commissioner Constantine, I think you were
Thank you
right.
very much. Our responsibility is to educate. And so I think the people, as I said from the very beginning, I have faith in the people that they're going to see through this, that it was haphazardly put together for political purposes. They didn't do the analysis before they did it. And the best thing that could probably happen is that the people find wisdom in rejecting this. And then we've got a tax commission next year. And looking at that and doing it reasonably in a way that, will protect all the counties and their independence, will protect, services, vital services, will protect police and fire, and honestly will protect the property values by maintaining a quality of life. So, people don't believe that this is really, those that are supportive of it. I have heard so many people, well, you'll fund it anyway. And you won't, you don't have the guts to eliminate parks and libraries. Well, the reality is we will have no choice. It's not a question of whether we're going to pull the trigger. It's a question of whether, we just don't have the funds and we cannot deficit spend. And what they're also missing is how much it's going to cost them when you have to borrow money and how much it's going to cost them without services, vital services, and therefore people not wanting to move here, how their property values will be going down. So, thank you for the analysis, everyone. It's something that we've all been asking for and wanting, and something that every local government throughout the state is doing or should be doing, and that is, again, education. This is not, stating a position. The position is obvious if you, are looking at this intelligently, but this is showing, this is giving an education to the people.
Commissioner Lockhart.
One of the things that I think is really helpful when we're talking about communicating this, just the budget, even in a normal year, let's even take out the fact that we're looking at the implementation of homestead exemption reform, property tax reform. Just a normal year, communicating how our budget works to the general voting public is a challenge. It's complicated. It's not an easy thing. I was on staff here for many years and worked very closely with the budget office, and still, after working on budgets for many years, had questions and needed clarification, and things change. And so to think that with a postage stamp, postcard, political campaign, you can accurately educate the public on how to run a local government and provide these services is really foolish. I think one of the things that we can do to better communicate the work that's done here by our staff is to stay consistent between dollar amounts and/or percentages. Because we're switching from 420, looking at slide, I don't know, it's 9. We've got $426 million of annual property tax revenue, and we say 72% of it is on public safety. And then we talk about percent of property tax reform, and then a dollar amount of the reduction. And then we go to that fabulous pie chart, and the pie chart doesn't have dollar amounts on it, it has percentages. So I think if we could come up with some type of communication that sticks with dollars, like in my home budget, I know what the dollars are that we're working with, and then I know the dollars that I need to cut, and then I know how much I spend in each category, and so then I know how much I need to cut in each category. Rarely do people in their home budgets talk about percents of income or outgo. So I would ask that we come up with something that sticks with dollar amounts. So I just wrote down on the slide 9, $426 million of annual property tax revenue, equates to, then we have $307 million of that being spent on public safety. So if we were, and I know this is if, I know your scenario is across the board cuts,
Right.
but if we were to hold public safety completely harmless, that's $306 million, $306,720,000 that we would not touch. Then that means that we've got the balance, which is, interestingly enough, about $119 million of cuts that we need to find somewhere else. So then if we change back over to that pie chart and we say, here is where we need to find $119 million, what do each of those categories amount to in dollar value so that we could figure out where those cuts would be? I think you lose the public, and you maybe even lose some of us when you talk about 20% revenue impact. That's me just brainstorming up here, thinking about this from the perspective of the John Q. public who genuinely wants to figure this out and really understand what the impact of their vote is going to be in November. What does it mean to them? I think that would be important. Tim, do you know what the dollar value is in the red?
Sure. Yeah, this pie chart's built on dollars. Yes, it's built on the amount of ad valorem revenues paid for each of these services. So some of the services are split funded. They provide benefits to other funds like water and sewer. That gets a little bit tricky, but yes, these are absolute dollar amounts for each pie chart.
So can you tell me what the dollar value is of the red?
I don't have that in front of me now.
Okay. So if someone was to look at that chart and I was to say, I need to find $119 million in this chart, tell me where you want me to cut, how would someone, a member of the public, let's say we wanted to make this a group project, and we wanted to put it out there for the public to submit their suggestions. Here's the budget, here's where all the dollars go. You find $119 million of your suggestion of where you would cut. How could the public find $119 million in our budget if they wanted to give us feedback? I think that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And the red is $119 million.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It goes away.
It is exactly $119 million. Okay.
Yes.
I think we need to communicate that.
And, Madam Chair, if you will.
Yes.
And because we're required to pay for the constitutional officers, that big section of the red has to be taken out, so we have to find someplace else to take even more out. The unfunded mandates, you can't touch. The constitutional officers, you can't touch. So it's all that red, and then something else
Right.
that you can't even imagine what it is.
Right. Because sorry.
So the county administration, Darren is gone. Okay, we don't have a county manager. I mean, I'm just showing, you have all the county administration, all the community services by Allison, all the library, all the parks, and then we have to find even more. So pretty much if you look at the constitutional officers and you look at the roads, bridges, and drainage, you can kind of put that one on that. So now you're getting rid of all the roads, bridges, and drainage.
I'm going to go to Commissioner Zimbauer, and then I think we have some clarity that needs to be provided on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like percentages and dollar figures.
Agreed.
Because they're used for different functions, at least when I look at them, would be helpful.
Sure.
I just want to go on the record that I think we would be asking constitutional officers to reduce their budgets along with us reducing the
Correct.
budget, because if we're dysfunctional, they're dysfunctional, so they're,
But you can't eliminate them.
But
You can't eliminate.
you're
You can't
required to
eliminate,
do it.
yeah.
Understood, but the notion that they're pulled out and we can't touch it at all was the statement, and I don't know that that's, but you can't eliminate them.
All right.
Madam Chair,
Just clarity.
one quick question. On some of the items in the red, there are support items that have to go to either first responders or the correction, so we also need to know what those supports
Yeah.
that are going to go away.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, this chart, the reason I say it's so impactful is really to illustrate to the board and to the public that, one, the misconception that public safety can't be touched, and, that was not in the legislation that was approved and that will be on the ballot. But this is to show, and we know we can't do all that in the red. I mean, there's no way that we could, and keep function. But this
Some of
was.
you can.
Yeah, some of you can, but we can't not do it all. So this was just a depiction that if you wanted to keep all the public safety whole, that's the impact in the red that would have to be eliminated, which we know we can't eliminate all of that in there. So that's just, and I always say that inner circle, that white, is the nucleus. And that 20%, yes, I like that comment, Commissioner Lockhart, was that 20% represent? It's 119 million of the 400 million that we get in property tax. So it's a huge, huge impact to us.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
Sorry. To that point, and to Commissioner DeLaure's point, I think we're going to need to know from the county attorney specifically, what are we mandated to fund, period. And I think we also need to understand, when it comes to constitutionals, this provision did not impact the statutes that mandate we fund those, and they come up with their own budget.
Right.
So I hear what was said over here about, we want our constitutionals to be feeling the pain as much as we are, but the reality is that may not be the case.
Right.
So I think the real answer is, we need to be prepared to have a number, a dollar amount, that we take to our legislatures to ask them, this is what we're going to need to fund what statutorily we are required to fund. I think at the end of the day, that's the real answer.
Well, and the inverse of that, if there are portions of their budgets or others that we are not required to fund, we need to know the difference, which I know you know, which is what makes this also complicated, those shared numbers. Because the concept of elimination versus taking a big, deep haircut are two different things, and I think the public very much understands that. It's difficult to articulate.
So just to go back and clarify, I'm not saying don't use percents ever. I'm saying in our
Right.
communication to the public, we
Sure.
need to be consistent with how we
No.
communicate. Okay.
I think both are valuable.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're clear that I'm not saying forget percentages. I do think it would be helpful also in the discussion about mandates. There are mandates and then there are mandates. Sunrail is one of them, right? I mean, we have in our interlocal agreement, our LFA, I guess our local funding agreement, it specifically contemplates what happens if a local funding partner does not fund Sunrail and how DOT will manage that, and it's to take it out of our work program. So we know going in that it's a mandate, but if you don't, this is what we'll do.
Right.
So I think all of those evaluations need to be on the table. The other thing that just eats at me is we have these I'm going to use air quotes, partners, like Lynx, who we all fund, but they are not required to take a reduction or make any reductions in their operations or budget. So while they are funded by local governments, they are not directly impacted by this reduction, but yet we will have significantly less dollars to fund them. So I think partners like that, organizations that we help fund like that, need to be higher on the list, personally, than our other internal departments or people who are delivering direct services here in Seminole County. That would just be my hot take. The other piece of this that I think, again, goes back to how we talk about this with the public. You know, I've had multiple conversations with people all across the political spectrum on this topic. And depending on your perspective, whatever your worldview is to begin with, you view this discussion very, very differently. And I have had people say, when I say, well, you know what, give me some specific examples of things that you would like to have cut. And they will say, cut it all. I don't use any of it. I don't go to libraries. I don't go to parks. I don't use the trails. I don't care about any of that. Cut all of that. And okay, that still doesn't get us to $119 million. What else do you want to cut? And I think that we need to recognize when we are communicating that we are communicating to a vastly diverse group of folks and their perspectives on this. For the last year, there has been a very concerted effort to drive a wedge between local elected officials and local public servants and our constituents. And that wedge has been very successfully driven, I believe, inappropriately and with misinformation. And we now have a much broader trust gap than we have ever had. And so earning that trust back against misinformation is an uphill battle to climb to begin with, which is why I keep harping on how it is that we communicate with the public, because we're already being accused before we even open our mouths of being alarmist. And then when we have these conversations, all we're doing is trying to fearmonger and scare people. And this has nothing to do with scaring anyone. It's facts and it's math. And Tim does not have a garden full of money trees. We can't just find the money somewhere, and we're not spending like drunken sailors, and we're not up here all pocketing the money. If I could have $1 for every time I've seen an accusation like that on social media that local government is just, we're all a bunch of crooks up here stealing everybody's money. These are real services to real citizens that have real needs, and I think we take very seriously the job that we have to make sure that every single dollar is spent to the benefit of the public. And this proposal is just another opportunity for us to continue to make good choices and be more transparent and continue to do the work, frankly, that we do every single year when we talk about this budget. So I'm going to jump off my soapbox, but I just am very passionate about how we talk about this with the community, because it's absolutely critical.
So I'll not jump on the soapbox, but I do just want to point out a couple of things. The broad brush of all 67 counties is the challenge. Mm-hmm. If you happen to be a county that is not necessarily as conservative as we have been with taxing and spending over the years, you are probably not nearly as pressured as we are. So for the counties that are doing things that are outside of what is considered the norm in Tallahassee, they can eliminate those and not be touching their public safety. So I just want to point out that this is actually probably having the inverse effect. But potentially a positive effect in some areas where there is overspending. I'm not sure. I do think one of the things that we have to talk about openly as we're communicating with the public is this notion that when we compare a budget to a family budget, It is a gigantic misconception. My family budget is all one big bucket. I get to pluck and play, whatever. I get to tell the kids, you're not going to college. I get to, do all the stuff that you do. I have all the funds. I don't have the college fund anymore, thank goodness, but I had the college fund. I had the summer camp fund. I had the insurance fund. But I could move money freely between all of those things.
Grandchildren come, and then those college funds come back.
If you would help me get them dates, that possibility does exist. So I'm taking nominations. And so, or even to go to a bar, like that would be a good step. But I will say that a county budget is much different. The analogy that I've heard recently that is a really good one is that it's like the old school, it's an ice cube tray. And the water doesn't flow from one end to the other, and I can't make it flow from one end to the other. And it's, in my mind, it's not a normal ice cube tray. Not that I'm an ice cube tray about drinking expert. However, I have some really cool little ice cube trays for when I mix a certain cocktail in the shaker that's different. Ours is like a little teeny ice cube tray, and I can't move funds from one to the other to the other to the other. So the representation that's here is an accurate representation with where we are unlimited in terms of how we can move things around here. The rest of the budget is not part of this and can't be moved in or out. I think that is a gigantic misconception.
Very good point.
I'm going to ask that we, from my perspective, what I think we've heard is that this be updated to add percentages and dollars. And I would also ask that we share this model with all of the cities, because it would be super helpful. We are not the state of Florida. We are not going to impose a mandate on them. But it would be super helpful if we were all using the same type of tool. And this is the best visualization that I've seen. So if we would share it in a form that they can plug their numbers in, that would be awesome. And I want to go through a couple of slides here and just point out some other interesting. So if you put up the slide that's parcels impacted by the 250, the 3 bar charts, I just want to point something else here that is really, I think, the opposite impact that I would think that we would want to have happen if we were going to adjust property taxes. The people with the highest value homes are getting the best discount.
Yep.
That is absolutely not who we wanted to help the most. What I'd like to do is shift from that upper into the lower and help folks that are struggling with housing. And that's not people who are sitting in houses that have a homestead value of 250 grand or more. And if it is, they could slide down the housing spectrum and get to a lower price home. But this is having the opposite impact. This will have a wonderful impact on the Herr family. And it's not the right thing. It is just simply not the right thing. So another point out that I think that we all need to understand. And then if I go to the last slide, I'll just point out on the steps that you outlined, I do think those are the appropriate steps. I think the communication is really important. And I'll leave us with this one last thought, and that is, David, when you're laying awake at night, I would like to plant this thought in your head. I think there is a way for us to build a calculator, because absent of us doing it and the state leaving that one up, we continue to feed the false narrative. I think you can put the caveats in there of, I must agree that this is not, an absolute blah, blah, all the stuff that we do. But something's got to go up that shows folks that number that they're seeing is not real. And maybe we can take the lead on that. No pressure, but let's think about that at night as we're thinking about all of these things.
I don't know. I think that's a fool's mission right there
Well,
on how you can track.
I think absent of trying, we won't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, so you live in your home for 30 years, your assessed value is X. I come in and buy the house right next to you, it's the exact same house tomorrow, my assessment's far different. And when those properties turn over or no longer become homesteaded, that happens on a daily basis in this county. So being able to track that's going to be pretty tough.
So Commissioner Zimbauer, what I'm suggesting is that it's an individual calculator that I can go in and plug in my assessed value or plug in this is probably too much to ask, but plug in my address and pull the assessed value out of the system, and it populates. I'm not asking for us to assimilate all of the impact of this, just the impact to me, which is what the state's calculator is doing, and they're coming up with zeros. And that's not real. It's not the assimilation of all of it. It shouldn't feed anything else, but an individual's knowledge about the impact of this on their personal situation. If they plug in the wrong assessed value amount, that's on them.
So currently, on the system or website that gets about 3 million hits a month, there is a calculator that
Yep.
obviously talks about what happens if the property sells, what happens if it continues
Yep.
to be maintained. That is an easy ask to move because it assumes if you punch in your address, your name, your parcel number, whatever, it's giving you a $50-something thousand exemption. All you do is you change that 50 to 250 or 150, and that gets you the number. I think my concern is, and certainly we have had this discussion amongst us as property appraisers and internally, and I'm not saying it's not going to happen, it probably will at some point, because to your point, it's very frustrating that there is so much misinformation out there, especially when this thing says it's provided by the state of Florida. I don't even know what that means, because it doesn't have the state seal or anything like that on there. And I know the Department of Revenue did not do this. So it's frustrating when it looks like it carries some level of credence. So I agree with you. I struggle with this, and we're still going to work towards that.
Yep.
But back to the three bar charts for a second. I think the important piece, and you hit the nail on the head, about who's going to benefit from this. So the 32% that are 250 and under, remember those are folks like Commissioner Zimbauer talked about that have been in their home for 25, 30 years and gotten the full benefits of Save Our Homes. And yes, their market value is in the $400,000 range, and when it sells, it's going to go from that 210 to 400, and that's the phone call I get. You must have made a mistake because my realtor told me X, my taxes were going to be, which of course I've been trying to empty that ocean with a teaspoon for years also. So
And Zillow and Realtor.com.
Exactly.
And, right, all the apps.
And by the way, we did have the property appraisers did have that law changed this last legislative session that does make Zillow and Realtor.com take their calculator to what it would be if it sells, because what they were doing was just putting what the person was paying before. So that creates a little bit of an effort. So we're trying. But back to the 32%. Again, those are people that are totally benefiting from the Save Our Homes. They've been in their home for a long time. And the other piece to this that we've not really talked about, there's about 2,500 to 3,000 homesteaded property owners in this county that pay no property taxes. Now, that's some of it because it's lower income, lower valued properties, but the very, very vast majority of that, 85%, are folks who have a disability. They are either combat-related or non-combat-related, and they deserve that benefit. That's the benefit that's given to them by the state. And if we were to change this process out to maybe go to some level of non-ad valorem assessment, not saying that's going to happen, but guess what happens? They no longer get an exemption on the non-ad valorem piece of the equation. So then they get a tax increase. So that quadriplegic who's wheelchair bound, who's on a limited income, real stories, will end up paying some level of property taxes because if we go to some level of non-ad valorem assessment. So not saying that's going to happen, but the whole story has to be told. And, again, I think it's going to impact lower valued properties more than the higher valued properties. You're right. We all have friends and families like, this is great, I'm going to save $1,600, $2,000 a year, depending on what city I'm in. But that, by the way, they probably don't need that, okay? And again, that's not what the ad valorem tax system it's supposed to be. I mean, it's, according to value, ad valorem, we love Latin. It's been around since the reason we have this system is a couple thousand years old. Like it or not like it. The non-ad valorem is not based on value. That's based on the cost for the service. So, again, it's to Commissioner Constantine's perspective. We have a Tax and Budget Reform Commission that meets every 20 years that will meet again in 2028. I will not sit here, and you've all heard me say to you individually and in a group setting, that there is not any kind of reform that does not need to happen to the property tax system in the state of Florida. I've done this for over 40 years. We gave the legislature multiple ideas. 95% of it was left on the cutting room floor, okay? I'm hoping that if we can get to the Tax and Budget Reform Commission in 2028, we can do like we did in 2008, the last time they met. And we did increase the homestead exemption from 25 to 50. We did create portability. We did create a lot of good things. And so, again, I think the voters just need to understand this is probably not the best plan. Does it mean that we scrap everything and nothing ever comes forward again? But I think there's a more thoughtful way of doing it, and unfortunately, I'm not sure this is the best plan to do that. So,
Commissioners, anything further to add? Thank you, David, for that perspective.
Madam Chair, I could go on, and I think all of us could.
Please,
But, this is shooting at a target and missing completely the entire board.
I'll end on a more positive note. I do think it spurred conversation throughout the state, and there's probably some value to that as long as the conversation ends up being productive. So along that line, do we have any public comment?
Yes, ma'am. One speaker, Leslie Grubel.
Welcome to budget hearing number 4.
Leslie Grubel, Longwood, Florida, 32779. Today, I was speaking on behalf of the League of Women Voters, which a lot of times I am not, because that requires some permissions. We had council this weekend in Orlando. Yay for Orlando. And we had over 20-some representatives of counties in our state. The League of Women Voters believes and has a mission statement that local government should have local control, that is paramount. And they believe that Amendment 3, and they support this, that it should not pass. They believe that Amendment 3 is an overreach by the state into our local control. And listening to the items here and what changes might have to be made, it is apparent that if there is some issue in our local area with the lack of funding, I can just imagine trying to go up to my representative at the state and say, hey, my street's not getting repaired. Can you fix that? And it's so crazy to think that they have our ultimate local knowledge of what needs to be done in our county. And I am behind the League 100%, and I find that our group is powerfully against this homestead exemption plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you being here and spending all morning with us.
Chairman, can I say one thing? Now, what I was deciding if I was going to say this or not, but you started it, so I'll say. Some of the questions I get of, you have a $1.2 billion budget. You can't find $119 million.
Right.
And when you made the statement about the ice cube trays, it made me start thinking is that the state restricts us in so many of our revenue sources that we get in. And it's probably a good thing at some point, so of the 1.2, we're talking about $400 million Really, that affects all of our public safety. All those special revenue funds that we call, that makes up the 1.2, you cannot spend on fire and police. The state restricts us. Water and sewer has to be paid for water and sewer services. Garbage pickup has to be paid for garbage pickup. Hotel tax has to be paid for tourism-related stuff. I mean, it goes on. And when I'm out making a presentation, and governmental funding and budgeting, it's tough unless you live it like we have for the last 30 plus years, is that think of you have 100 checkbooks. But this one, those 100, you can't transfer from one checkbook to the other checkbook. And this one checkbook that we have is unrestricted. We can move it around, but they're actually attack it, and they're going to reduce that checkbook. So I appreciate you bringing that up. It is hard to explain to the layperson, the citizen out there, because they see our budget. $1 billion is a lot of money. $1 million is a lot of money. However, again, just the statement that, again, the state, for good, better, or whatever, is that they restrict us on what we can spend our revenue on. And so our hands are tied just going into this process. But I appreciate the dialogue. I made a lot of notes. I'm going to follow up with each of you, and we'll be prepared when we come back at the second meeting in August to start this process again. Budget work session number 5.
The last thought that I'll leave you with before we adjourn for the morning is the notion that nowhere in our communication is that being said. So our starting point is the ad valorem, the ad valorem, the ad valorem, and folks know what our total budget is. It's got to enter into this dialogue in every document that we put out.
And the bond covenants as well that restrict.
Yeah.
Yes.
All that.
Everything.
I mean, there's no question. It's popular to say government's fat and happy and spends money like drunken sailors. I think it was the second year I was here, going through the budget session, I looked at everyone and said, I've run a lot of businesses, and I run some successful business. You guys are running this thing so daggone conservative, I'm shocked you're not out of business. Hence 16 years with no tax increase until we absolutely had to do it. Or we'd be having similar discussions as we're having right now. What are we cutting out?
Well, and deferred maintenance that is just plagues us.
Correct.
Yep.
Commissioner, I wasn't going to say anything more, but the analysis of the family budget was very good. The thing that the people, and I've heard my fellow commissioner Zimbauer talk about business and everything, and we all have to try to use certain basic tactics that business has to run government.
Absolutely.
However, the business's prime reason for existing is to make a profit for the owners and the tax and the stock owners. Government's primary responsibility is the health, safety, and welfare of all of its citizens. And what one sentence and 500,000 that we deal with, one's sense of priority may be a gun range. Another's sense of priority is a library. Another is having a meal that night and a place to live. And we have to help the least of our citizens. That's our responsibility. So we can't always run like a business, even though we try to do it as much as we can.
Well, and I'll pick up where you left off, and I will say an ounce of prevention, and we do operate that way, is worth a pound of whatever. And the reality is that when we don't do the things that we need to do to protect property values, to protect job growth, to protect good job growth, to do all of the things that we do to make sure that the number of impoverished residents stays low and continues to decrease, that's the mission, so that we're not necessarily helping those that are impoverished at the exclusion of making sure that we keep our folks thriving. And that's the community that we've all lived in for years, and that's the community that we want to maintain. And maintaining property values is really important, given that as any individual's typically their most valued asset, and it is what creates generational wealth in this country.
And Madam Chair, although we have to continue to be diligent in getting out the word and the education, the good news is I think the people of Florida are realizing this is a boondoggle, and the latest polls are showing it's going down.
Yes.
Well, I feel like I wasn't going to say anything. I was just going to keep my mouth shut. Oh, heavens. We have inequity in the current system. Our property tax system is inequitable. We see it, we know it, you live it every single day. Our realtors experience it all the time. It's not that we are not advocating for reform or an evening out of the system, but we have services, to everyone else's point, that have to be delivered. And so I think the question that I am posing to the citizens who I am asking to reach out to me and give their input is, how do you want us to pay for the services that you receive? The services that we deliver in this county, how do you want us to pay for them? Do you want us to pay for them through property taxes, which is the current model that we have set up? Do you want us to pay for them through assessments, through increased other fees, user fees, or which ones do you want us to eliminate? Because that's really where we're headed. If 60% or more of the voters in Florida vote to change this system, that's the current system we're working in. The system changes. We need to know from our citizens how they want us to pay for these services.
Well, I think part of that is the invisibility of certain services and how citizens understand how it's actually paid for. You don't worry about a sidewalk or a pothole until your street's in disarray or your children are tripping over the sidewalk or whatever, and how that's funded and paid for, et cetera, or how you move through the community based on smart traffic devices, et cetera, saving you and your family time and aggravation getting across town or through the community. So, you know, I said it before and I'll say it again, our country was founded on the citizens' ability to dictate and decide how they would be taxed. In fact, that's one of the reasons this country was even found. But we must educate for them to understand that, sure, you know, if you want to get rid of it, this is what it looks like. And until that happens, sometimes things have to get real broken before they get fixed. And I'd hate to see us get to that point. But I think it's incumbent upon us through this process to educate and put as much information out there, whether people, I mean, look, there's going to be people that say, well, we don't believe that for a second. You know, that's government. And I was one of those people before I arrived here, but you actually see what's going on. The reality is they have a decision to make in November. It's our obligation to give them as much information in the most simplistic way possible for them to pull it in, digest it, and make a rational, good decision. And I think that's really what our focus should be, and I think what I've heard from my fellow commissioners, which is exactly what hopefully happens.
I think that's what we're doing.
All right, with that, can we adjourn?
Yes.
Meeting adjourned till the afternoon.
You better hurry up and get the phones.
Exactly.
Been shaking his head.
You said it.
He's like, don't bring that up.
When you start this thing, you're like, less said.
We're selling that property in a heartbeat.
Right.
We're condominiums. We're fixing this house.
Starting the education. You know, sometimes the mind